You're watching MMA Oddsbreaker, and today we have, well, the godfather of MMA reffing, Big John McCarthy. You invented the rules. I know I called you old, right? That was old.
Damn, it is. It's all right. I am.
Well, remember when you started reffing, there were no rules. And then you invented the rules and helped write the rules and implicated the rules and wrote the book on it. And so now there's a problem where, Dana White's been vocal about it for years. There's a problem with reffing and a problem with judging. He has certain refs, you were one of them for a long time, that he didn't like, didn't want around. But yours wasn't because you were technically incorrect in the ring. It was because of other things going on outside the ring, trying to change weight classes and stupid stuff like that. But there's still a problem.
Weight class. I love these stories, how they
I know,
happen.
right? Yeah.
But totally not true.
But anyway, you're back in good grace with the UFC. We're talking about the UFC that you were just down at, but you didn't ref this particular fight. We're talking about the Claudio Silva and the Drew Dober fight with a horrible referee stoppage. It was, caught in a submission. They stopped, he called the end of the fight, thinking there was a tap out or a verbal submission in there. And then everybody at home, I'm at home, I'm watching on TV. I thought it was crazy, but there was a winner. It eventually got overturned by the commission down there. First, I want to know, what was the conversation like with that official? I'm assuming you were head official during this time, right?
I don't know if I'm anything, dude.
Okay.
I'm just working like everyone else.
But you're the go-to guy. Every time there's a thank you, a great job, a great stoppage, you screwed up, you're wearing the wrong color shoes. Like there's anything going on at all, by the way, for the folks at home, he yelled at me last weekend when I was reffing for having the wrong color shoes on. It's a big thing. But we'll get into that later. Everyone looks to you for advice and for information. You're the go-to guy. So what was the conversation like when he walked out? Was there a conversation with if that had happened to me, if I was that ref and I screwed up like that, what would the conversation be with me right when I walk out of the cage? What would you have that conversation be like?
Well, the conversation is, as an official, your job is to be fair to the fighters,
Right.
And you want to do the best job you can, and you want to follow the rules, but you want to be as fair to the fighters as you can be while keeping them as safe as possible. And what happened, I think what really happened was, if you go back to, everyone's got perceptions of what they believe the rules are and what they're not. And, this travels, when you hear something from somebody that, they heard it from somebody else, and it's that telephone game. It causes a problem in our sport because we have so many people in different areas because we don't have that centralized, center. This is what information. ABC is going to be that. But there's many people, and
Hi, Frank. It's me, Kelly.
There's always these kind of interesting little arguments that go on. Like earlier today in the beginning of this interview, I was like, hey, because you're trying to change the weight classes, Dana didn't like you. Well, that was a telephone game. I did that on purpose because it was a telephone game. And then we're having a problem where we can't really stop and fix the telephone game because we have no central body, like you just said. So then it becomes, what part of the telephone game do you change when you show up and try to fix things out? And we still have conversations like this all the time. Like you and I have these conversations of, how was this thing done? Why was this thing done this way? Whatever. So what you're saying is the referee thought that something was supposed to happen or something was supposed to be done that didn't happen. And he thought that this is how it's supposed to be laid out. Is that what you're saying for this particular event? Or
yeah, well, for that, but for the very first fight that he did that evening, he had a tap out, and it was a fight. An earlier fight, it was between an American. Christos Gallegos, who was fighting a Brazilian named, I believe, George Oliveira. And in it, George ends up getting caught in a rear naked choke. Christos has got it. It's deep. You can see it. And George ends up giving a tap and then another tap, and the referee doesn't stop it. And George starts to go out, and he stops the fight. And let's make it very clear. The referee is not someone that doesn't know the sport. He knows the sport.
Right.
He knows grappling. You're going to hear all kinds of people, oh, this guy doesn't know anything. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu down in Brazil. He comes from the Carlson Gracie lineage and stuff. He knows what he's doing. He knows the grappling game. It's just that he was informed, because I talked to him afterwards, he was informed that there had to be 3 taps.
Okay.
Well, when you sit there and that comes from the WWE with the referee hitting the ground, and I explained, and our whole thing is every time we do something, if we end up making a certain mistake, how did the mistake happen? How do we fix it? And how do we move on? And that's what he was trying to do. And I was trying to help him with it because I explained to him, I said, no, look when the fighter's in danger. Okay, danger is, obviously if they're taking strikes, but if they're in a submission, when the submission is on good or that's not going to work. And so with that submission, he knew that the choke was on good, but he believed from someone who had told him, the fighter's got to tap 3 times. So with it, he lets the fighter tap once, twice, wow, it stops it. The fighter starts. Can we explain that? Look.
Right.
Because danger. If the fighter is not in danger, and we get guys all the time telling us, "Oh, the fighter tapped," when the fighter's not in danger at all, and you go, "That's not a tap." And by being inside the ring, you got a lot of things going on.
Yeah.
And people are going to look at things the way they want, but we want to be fair to the fighter. So I think what really happened was, I think Eduardo started to overcompensate, and it happens. When you're a referee and you do something and someone tells you, "Nope, I want you to look at doing it this way." I think he started to just overcompensate for it. And with that overcompensation, when Drew is in that position and he's going to clear his head and his hand goes down, I think because of the conversation that we had, put Eduardo in the position, "Oh, it's a tap," not thinking he's not in danger.
Right.
The guy doesn't have the ability to put him in danger at that time with where he was at. So it was just, one of those things that, there's reasons behind it, I think. It's not that Eduardo is not a good referee. I think, he's made some really good calls. He made the call on the fighter that, broke his finger and stopped and pointed to it. And he said, fight's over. He did the right thing. So sometimes we try to overcompensate. Things can go wrong for us. And the big thing was that he needs to look at it. He admitted, I think I made a mistake. And that is the reason, because he gave up the actual control of the fight to the commission. That's why the commission was able to overturn it. So you got to give Eduardo credit. He did the right thing to try to help the fighter come up with the right resolution.
And not a situation of him and I saw this tweeted out and posted some different places. The commission was going to take his license away if he didn't admit to doing some wrongdoing so they could change the decision, all this other crap. And the reality of it is that the referee Eduardo went, "Hey, look, I messed up. Let's fix this." And the commission's like, "Okay, good, because you said we can fix this now. You messed up. Now we can fix it and make it right. And then now here we are to no contest, and we can move on and be about our business." So, but what happens now to Eduardo? Is he going to be, we've all seen, because obviously the UFC is the biggest promotion in the world. So we see when Dana jumps on top of a referee and all of a sudden Mazzagati's not doing anything anymore with the UFC. We see other refs and other commissions. All of a sudden you're just not working with the UFC anymore because of a mess up. What's going to happen now with Eduardo? Because I do know of this man. I've never met him before, but he is a good ref. He is a legit black belt in jiu-jitsu. He understands the game from being inside the game, not from being outside and being an accountant and wanting to jump in there. So he is a very good ref. But what happens to him now? Does he get sent back down to amateur leagues? Does he get pushed off to no man's land for a while? What happens to him?
Well, this is kind of, what's going to happen to him is up to the commission. And I think the commission is going to sit there and they're going to try to put him into fights where there's just not quite the pressure of being in the UFC right away. And that's to help and benefit him so he gets comfortable with what he's doing and stuff. Because, it's the same as, not a whole lot of people know that you're refereeing, and why? Because you haven't been in the UFC. And everyone wants to referee in, the UFC or Bellator because it's on TV. And I tell people, be careful of what you wish for, because it could be your worst nightmare, because all it takes is one mistake, and it doesn't even have to be a mistake. You can do what's right, and people think it's wrong, and now you're the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
And so
it is a little bit harrowing. You do see some new refs try to make that snap decision, because it's, we talked about this last weekend when we were up there working in Santa Barbara, that you don't necessarily have to make a decision in a tenth of a second. Sometimes you've got 2-3 seconds to make, that was a fence grab, and then the action's still going on. Now you can go, okay, stop, time. Let me talk to you about this. Let me figure. Okay, now fight. We can get it back together again. We have instances, but a lot of guys don't really understand that. So as a whole, a lot of the judges, especially our old boxing judges, have moved over into MMA, and they don't really understand the sport as a whole. So the judging isn't truly the way it should be. We should see a lot more 10-8, a lot more 10-7 rounds, and then the judging, or excuse me, the reffing is still behind the curve as well. What can we do to fix it? How can we make it better with what we have right now, with the staff that we've got running right now, as far as all the commissions throughout the world that are judging and reffing MMA?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. People talk about the judging's actually getting way better. Let's be honest. We're going to be doing something in California with the media and stuff with the judging part, because everyone has ideas of what they believe the judging should be like. It's different when you're the one doing it. It's different when you're the one signing your name to that card, and you've got the pressure of making sure that you are giving this fight to the right person. You now know what it's like to sit there. And sometimes it ain't easy.
Well, we talked about this last weekend, that I messed up on 2 of the rounds. No, I scored them correctly for the right individual, and that individual won. So I scored it correctly, but they should have been 10-8 rounds, not 10-9 rounds. And I was giving 10-9s, and they should have been a 10-8 round. So he still would have won, but he just would have won by a bigger margin. But think about it. If I screwed up somehow and had it the wrong way, the other guy could have won, or it could have been a split decision loss if I didn't do things correctly. So there is a lot of pressure and a lot of mix-ups. But now I know my mistake, and I actually got away unscathed because the right guy won anyway. Sometimes the right guy loses. The right guy loses. It's like, well, this isn't very good.
And the difference is you got away unscathed because it was at a low-level event where not a lot of people even know that fight's going on. Mm-hmm. And so there's not the media hanging over it, because you could do the exact same thing, and it's the UFC, and now they're all up Frank Trigg's butt because what are you thinking? What are you doing? When, look at it's the same thing as what we're talking about here. You can never make all the mistakes there are. I cannot make all the mistakes that are made. But I can learn from your mistakes, just like I can learn from mine, and we learn from everyone's, and we learn what's going on, and then we get the word out of, hey, here's a problem that can occur, here's how to keep it from happening, but if it does happen, this is what you want to do. And we get everybody doing it the same way. That's what we really need to do with officiating, both judging and reffing in MMA, is we need everybody looking at things the same way and doing things the same way, because then the fighters get used to it, the fans get used to it, and they know what's right and what's wrong. Because a lot of times we'll have a referee do something that's absolutely right, and the fans don't like it, and they think he's wrong. And we can have a referee do something actually wrong, but the fans like it, he's good, the other one's bad. When you got to do things one way. And everyone's got to be on that same wavelength, and we've all got to be communicating and talking so we understand exactly what is expected, how we're supposed to do it, why we're supposed to do it, and it becomes the same thing everywhere that fight.
Well, there's, you have your own certification course for reffing and judging. Herb Dean has his own certification course for reffing and judging. Other refs do as well. Is the material, is the same material being taught at every single one of these certification courses? Because now you're going to a situation of, okay, this is a great ref, this is a great ref, this is a great ref, this is a great ref. But each of them have their own certification course, and you go and take each course, but you learn something different in each course. Or is every course being taught with the same blueprint, so to speak, or the same syllabus?
No, it's obviously they're different lengths, so it's impossible that they're all going to be the same. What the referees are doing is there's certain things that, if you're an ABC certified trainer, there's certain things the ABC wants you to be, bringing out and teaching off of. They want you to be teaching off of the unified rules, obviously. But there's just so many things that go beyond the rules when it comes to refereeing, and that we have got to explain situations, why you want to be in a certain place, why you want to look in a certain area, why when this happens, you want to do it this way. That's not part of rules. That's part of referee mechanics, and everyone's going to teach it the way they think is the best. And that's for someone to decide who they think is the one that fits their style. We'll say, but are all courses the same? Absolutely not. I think if you look at it, my referee course is 3 days. Herb's is 1 day. There's other guys that have 4 hours. So, how can they all be the same? They're not all the same, but you know what? The main thing is that we get people that start learning what they're supposed to be doing. The one thing that I have going for me is, look, I was there from the beginning. I know why things happen. I was the one that wrote rules. I was the one that actually wrote, our criteria for judging along with Jeff Blatnick. And so I know where it came from. I understand exactly what was meant at certain times where other people don't. And so I have, in some ways I have an advantage in that, I've been around that long. In some ways it's not an advantage because I'm the old bastard.
Yeah, and techniques are changing and views are changing. The look of the fight has changed since you started. It's amazing just in my lifetime in the sport, which started way after yours did, how much has changed. I can't even imagine being UFC 1 all the way now to, 186 is coming up, or 187. It's ridiculous. How much has gone on, how much has changed. How much are you actually reffing? Do you have a job every weekend and you got to go ref, or is it you get some weekends off, or are you?
I referee just about every weekend, usually twice. Usually I'm reffing Friday night, Saturday night. Sometimes it's tomorrow night is Thursday. I'll be reffing Thursday night. I'll go to Vegas, do Friday. It's I work a lot, but that helps me because I get what I call repetitions in. I get a lot of repetitions, and that's why when I do a show with you, I don't take those repetitions. I want you to have them because I want you to get the experience, and I want you to have things happen in there because that's how you learn. And I'm there in the end if something happens that I can help you with it, or I can, we can talk about it later on and see if there's a way that could have been smoother, or the way you did it is perfect. But having repetitions as a referee is super important. That's why we have a lot of people that want to do this, and then we have, some athletic commissions that have a lot of people on their staff. Some people have only a few people. It's tough when you have a lot of people because they all want repetitions, but it's not really. It's that rotation thing is not going to work for you because all referees are different, and there's different skill levels. It's like everyone can drive a car. Yeah. They don't all drive the car the same. And there's race car drivers that are going to make the average driver look really bad as far as the way they're able to control a car. Well, it's the same thing with officials.
Okay, so you're a guy, and there's basically four commissions. There's Nevada, New Jersey, California, Ohio, like the four big commissions for boxing and MMA as a whole. Ohio's kind of because of boxing more so than anything else, but they do have quite a bit of MMA over there as well. If you're living in one of those states, it's relatively easy to get repetitions as a brand new ref in the amateur leagues, seeing time, getting time out there because there's so many events. If you're in a place like Indiana, or you're in a place like Nebraska, who doesn't have very many places to get repetitions, what do you do? Are you just stuck, or do you have to travel a lot more? Is it going to be one of those burdens where like every weekend I'm going to have to drive 110 miles to go to a different state? I mean, how are those kind of guys going to get the reps in?
Well, it's exactly, some of them have to travel. They're going to have to do things as far as getting themselves out away from, just their state. In the Midwest, there's a lot of shows going on, but they are segregated in where they're at and stuff. But, the main thing is you don't always have to be the one that's, in the ring, but you have to be watching the sport, and you have to be watching what's going on. And you can sit there and in your mind start to go through exactly where you would want to be during a fight while you're watching somebody else do it. And so even, when we're actually doing a show and my fellow, officials in there, I'll be sitting there thinking about, I would want to be here. I want this, I'm concerned about this person. And I start going through that fight in my mind. Well, it's not as good as the actual being the guy in charge, but it's a way of always working and conditioning yourself to think about where you want to be and why and what you would do in certain situations based upon, the other guy being in there, but you can make your mind work and make everything, have to be in a certain way as far as how you would be. You're not physically doing it, but mentally you're going through the process.
There's the other thing that raises the question is that when you were a sheriff, you made a lot more money
I
than you
was
do as
never.
Griffin. Well, whatever the hell, LAP, whatever.
LAP.
It's all the same to me. You're all crooked.
The LAP guy's mad because, I said I was a sheriff, and I get sheriffs mad because they said, you were never a sheriff.
Yeah, okay. All right, I stand. All right, I see. I sit corrected. So you made a lot more money when you work in LAPD than you are as a ref, but you have to work half as much, and obviously you're not sitting out there in a hot, sweaty car the whole time. But what's it like every single time looking at that going, oh, wow, well, now, obviously now you were LAPD for so long, you have retirement, but you're going, well, here's my police check, but I love this sport, but this check's not so much. Like, how is it like talking to your wife and going, Elaine, we're stepping away from this to go to this, just so you know, there's going to be a little bit of a pay cut.
Yeah, well, you know what? Obviously, you've got to figure out what's important to you in life. And the one thing, I knew it becoming a police officer, and I knew it being a referee. I'm never going to be rich. And you know what? That's okay. I don't need to be rich. As long as I can make enough money to pay my bills and live in a modest fashion, I'm good. I for a long time, I enjoyed what I did at LAPD. I love MMA. And you and I have talked about it. It's not our payoff is not the pay. We just don't make that much money really at it. The payoff is when you get to walk, into that arena, and you get to go past the security people and walk by everyone, walk down to the cage, and then go in the back and talk with fighters and start working things out, and no one stops you.
Yeah,
that's the payoff. That's the payoff. Because when it goes away, you see people quickly realize, oh my God. Because all of a sudden they're coming in the arena and they get stopped by and they're saying, hey, remember, hey, John, come over here, because it's different. Yeah. And that's where I tell everyone, my payoff is I've gotten to go places and see things that I never would have been able to if it wasn't for MMA. I've been able to take part of things that I never would have been able to take part of, and I get to do what I love, and no one stops me from doing it. Yeah. So,
that's pretty awesome. And the other thing, too, a lot of people don't realize is that when your daughter was stationed in Hawaii, you'd go out there to visit her, and you would donate your time and ref and judge fights in Hawaii for nothing because you're there to see your daughter anyway. So you were doing a lot of you were still giving back to small organizations that couldn't afford to have a big John McCarthy fly in and put him up and have him be part of the officiating. You were like, look, I'm here anyway to see my daughter. I have a free night. I'll spend a couple 4 hours doing what I love anyway. Here, here's my time. And that is really someone that loves the sport, that really enjoys being out there and doing this, because it is thankless. I mean, it is. You mess up, they let you know. But when you do great, they don't say anything. It's like,
you gotta love the people that say all the things. The funny part for me is when people go back. I mean, I've been doing it for 22 years. They'll go back 21 years. He screwed up this fight, and it's like, really? You're gonna go back 21 years? Yeah, okay, whatever.
Well,
you gotta love people.
A lot of them too are looking at these old fights from 21 years ago and using today's rule system.
Oh, yeah.
You screwed up. You're like, dude, you don't even understand. Back there, you could pull a guy's hair, poke him in the eye, and bite him. It was totally legal. It's changed since then. It's like,
I love when the people say, you let him grab the fence so many times. You suck. You're right. I suck.
You're right. Back then I did. Now I'm better. It's just what I can tell you. So, John, thanks for coming out here. I appreciate it and helping us clear that up. And we'll definitely, every single time that there's a weird stoppage, a strange stoppage, or where a ref's getting jammed up on, I'm going to try and grab you between you're traveling to other events to go ref and find out what happened and what's it like for that official now. What's going to happen to that official now for the next little stage?
No problem at all. Hey, I want everyone to know that man right there becoming a hell of a referee. So just keep doing what you're doing, man.
I'm okay. I got to get the right shoes.
There you go. See, that's what I'm talking about.
I have a pair of ASIC shoes that have their neon green around them.
Those are the rainbow colored ones, man.
Yeah, and they're I have those too. I have a pair of those too. Yeah, yep. And referees are supposed to wear black with black with black with black, and I have a little color because I haven't gone out to buy new shoes yet. And John yelled at me last week, and it was a legit reprimand in the post-fight meeting that we had. I literally got reprimanded for having the wrong shoes. But you're right. We do need to act the same, call the fights the same, have the same mechanics, and look the same to make everything even for all the fighters and not be a distraction to the fighters when they're out there. You're 100% correct, and I deserve the reprimand. And you're right. And now I got to go fix it.
I'm such an asshole.
You are. You're such a
okay, there you go.
All right, Johnny. Thanks, man. I appreciate it, but we'll talk to you soon.
My pleasure, brother. Talk to you later.